Andrew Brown Jr., we're talking about a man who was shot and killed by police very recently out of North Carolina, a place called Elizabeth City. And the mayor just declared a state of emergency tonight, Monday night, because there is new revelations that are supposed to be coming out very soon. I'm talking about, of course, body camera footage that details what happened here. So law enforcement got involved with Andrew Brown Jr., something about executing a warrant. There was a shootout and Mr. Brown was killed. And so a lot of people are really concerned about this body camera coming out because we've already seen some red flags go up. We've seen the governor call this extremely concerning. And today we had Ben Crump, who you may remember from the George Floyd case, was representing the Floyd family and helped them settle their case for $27 million. He's on this case. So he kind of just picked up and moved over to the next one. And here we are. And so he was out in front today. They had a meeting between the family of Brown Jr. and Mr. Crump and city officials to review some of the body camera today. And the mayor and North Carolina officials have already said we got to brace ourselves for impact here because this thing is going to be bad. And so I want to show you what happened today because the police department not doing themselves any favors by dragging this thing out. We're going to go through. I got a bunch of clips here. We're going to sort of bounce around a little bit. We're going to go in and out of some news stories. I've got some clips from the press conference today. As far as I know, the video is not out yet of this, the body camera footage of Mr. Brown engaging with law enforcement, or with them engaging with him, I should say. But it's going to be coming pretty soon at some point. They're waiting on a court to grant them permission to release it. So the police department apparently is communicating with the prosecutors. Everybody's checking everything before they can release this. And that typically does not work out well for law enforcement. I've been very critical about law enforcement on this issue for a long time now. I'm saying, guys, you got to hurry. You got to release this stuff sooner rather than later, because if you don't, the narrative is going to develop with or without you. People are going to start jumping to conclusions one way or the other. And we saw this with Ma'Khia Bryant, where they released the body camera footage immediately, right? We already saw that narrative bubbling up. A lot of people in this country just wanted, spring loaded. This was a racist white cop killed a 16-year-old, African-American girl. And this was sort of the second wave of the George Floyd unrest that we were all to be expecting. Well, that really didn't happen, right? It really wasn't like that. She had a knife and she was going to attack somebody else. And in my opinion, the officer, there was a perfectly acceptable shoot. It was unfortunate and tragic that she's dead, but I think that officer saved the other woman's life. So, we have that where everybody's just primed and ready to go, and the police did themselves a favor and society a favor, quite frankly, all of us, by releasing the video, the body camera footage quickly, getting in front of it and doing a press conference so that we could all see it. Now, I want you to compare and contrast that with this, where they're not giving us the information, where they're not giving us any of the footage. And I'm going to walk you through this and, say what you will about Ben Crump and him sort of, bouncing around from family to family, making tens of millions of dollars off of these settlements. But he's got a point here. They are not being transparent with any of this stuff. And I think that's a huge problem that's going to come back to bite them in the butt, as we're going to see, because the narrative is already starting as Ben Crump is helping craft it, because the police is sort of asleep at the wheel. They're sitting on their hands waiting for the courts and everybody to, get the wheels in motion so that they can release some of this information to the public. So we're going to go through, we're going to bounce around. Let's take a quick look at this article over from Fox News. It says Andrew Brown Jr. shooting. Elizabeth City, North Carolina, declares a state of emergency ahead of the body camera video release. So on Monday, ahead of the possible release, during a drug-related warrant, Brown was killed after that was executed by sheriff deputies last week. Brown's family and their attorneys will be privately shown the video at Pasquotank County Sheriff's Office at 11:30 a.m. Eastern Time today. So they had that today. We've got some clips from the conference. They're going to hold a news conference immediately following. Ben Crump, the high-profile civil rights attorney who secured the $27 million settlement for Floyd, is also going to be there along with a number of other attorneys. Elizabeth City, Pasquotank City public school officials will also operate on a full remote schedule for all students and staff through Friday, quote, due to continuously evolving state of civil unrest in our local community and under advisement of our local law enforcement partners. So we've got the city that's getting locked down. We have private schools. They're going to go back to a remote schedule because all of this is now going to be released sooner rather than later. We're waiting on a court to come out and grant permission for them to do that. So let's take a quick look at the declaration by the city. Elizabeth City says here, mayor is authorized and empowered. You may remember a lot of these. We saw a lot of these very recently throughout the COVID era, unfortunately. She says, whereas on Monday, April 26, city officials will file a formal request with the sheriff's office seeking the public release of a body-worn camera footage from the incident resulting in death of Andrew Brown on Wednesday, April 21st. So not long ago, about 5 days ago. All right, and it is our understanding that numerous news media outlets have taken steps to secure a court order directing the sheriff's office to release those tapes. It seems likely that the video and audio footage will be released in the very near future in order to ensure the safety of our citizens and their property. City officials realize there may potentially be a period of civil unrest within the city following the public release of that footage. So the big question, of course, has the mayor seen this? Has Mayor Betty Parker seen this? Is she sort of bracing for impact? Does she know what's coming down the pike here? It goes on. In order to absolutely ensure that the city has all state and federal resources necessary to protect our citizens during any such period of unrest, we deem it necessary to declare a state of emergency within the city from Monday, April 26 at 8 a.m. and continuing until deemed no longer necessary to protect our citizens from a threat to their safety. So they have a right to peaceably assemble and businesses must be protected from violence. Therefore, she's declaring a state of emergency. Direct all departments and agencies to take whatever steps necessary to protect life, liberty, property, infrastructure, and such emergency assistance as deemed necessary. So it's going to take in full force and effect. All law enforcement, everybody's going to respond, distribute this everywhere. It's going to take effect today, this morning at 8 a.m. So that whole city now is essentially on lockdown. Let's learn a little bit more about what happened here. So the background comes from CNN.com. So we're bouncing from Fox over to CNN. Attorney for Andrew Brown Jr.'s family says the video of the fatal police shooting shows an execution. And so once again, this is Ben Crump, right? So take that for what it's worth. The sheriff's deputies were authorized to look for crack cocaine, other controlled substances, and evidence of criminal activity in Brown's two vehicles and his residence, according to a search warrant that was signed by a judge on April 20th. According to the search warrant, investigator Meads, a guy by the name of Ryan Meads, received information from the Dare County Narcotics Task Force in March of 2021 regarding the illegal sales of controlled narcotics by Andrew Brown residing in Elizabeth City. Task Force had been in touch with an informant who had claimed to have been buying drugs from Brown for over a year, including at his home, motels, according to the warrant. However, Brown's aunt, Betty Banks, said the family was told that authorities did not find any drugs or weapons in his car or his house. So we know here that Elizabeth City, located in the northeast corner of North Carolina, population just under 18,000 people. So a very small town, right? Small, not like Phoenix, for example. We have basically $1 billion police industry here. So we're probably talking about some local, smaller town police officers there. And it's a bit of a different ballgame in that regard. So we'll see where this goes. Apparently there must have been a warrant they're talking about that a judge signed off on. They executed it. And so you're going to see this, right? You already know how this goes. Every time police involved shooting involving somebody else, there's a segment of this country that comes out and they want to demonize the person who was shot and killed. Oh, he's a drug dealer. Oh, he's an addict. Oh, he's whatever, right? He's a rapist. He's a murderer. Okay, fine. I understand all of that. Okay, you can have that opinion. You can say maybe that human life wasn't worth all that much to you because of one of those things. I disagree with that. I think that person still has value. I think there's opportunity for rehabilitation and things like that, right? I'm a defense lawyer. I tend to sort of give people the benefit of the doubt in those regards. But I also understand that this sort of countervailing viewpoint here, that you got to take that into consideration when you're doing your analysis and when the police get involved. Now, all that being said, this person still deserves due process. It doesn't matter what type of crime he committed. The police officers are not judge, jurors, and executioners. They don't get the ability to just sort of make all of those decisions in one fell swoop. If this guy was dealing drugs, fine, right? Arrest him, charge him, bring the evidence in a court of law. Let's see where that goes. See if they can convict him there. They don't get to just start shooting somebody unless there are some pretty high standards there, typically involving lethal force being directed back at the officers, right? There's some force that is coming back their direction that justify the elevation of their use of force to a higher level. And from what it sounds like, maybe they went a little bit over the top, but it's a little premature. We'll see. The reason why, when this happens, the reason why I give the benefit of the doubt to not the police, is because they have all of the evidence. They could show us, right? They could have had some policies in place. This happened on the 21st. So they've had some time to get this stuff out and in front of us, and it's just slowly starting to sort of trickle out. So that's on them, right? Now it's only been about 5 days, and that's fine. I think that's still way too long. I would like a rapid response. 24 to 48 hours, I think, is very reasonable if somebody is shot and killed. But, as long as the family's notified and those types of things, because you're going to see what happens. The narrative is already percolating right now, and it doesn't serve the police. So I think that more transparency, more accountability, more of a rapid response would actually serve them, not hurt them. But I've never been a police officer. So that was out today, of course. He's involved in some narcotics task force. Who knows what the warrant says or whether it was justified or whatever happened. We know that there were some problems with the Breonna Taylor warrant. We know that those cops went over there, said that they knocked and announced. Neighbor says kind of they did, then sort of recants that they did, they didn't, then they did. And, so who the heck knows? And apparently they were wearing body cameras. So this should all be available for us to take a look at, but we just haven't seen it yet. And apparently the family today, well, they saw some of it. Let's take a look and figure out what's going on. So Ben Crump, as you can see, had a press release. We have Ben Crump, Harry Daniels, Bakari Sellers, and members of the Brown family. They were all there today. This is from a press release. Nationally renowned civil rights attorney Ben Crump and others will address the media following a meeting with the county sheriff's office where the attorneys are going to view the video. Okay, so they met and watched it today. And it says here, it has been alleged that deputies shot Brown in the back as he drove away from them while they were attempting to execute a search warrant. A few details and no body cam footage have been released by police. 7 county sheriff's deputies have been put on leave following Brown's death. 2 have resigned and 1 has retired. All right, so two just bailed and 1 just quit. 7 of them, 2 said, I'm out. I'm done. I'm resigning. Somebody else just said, I'm retiring, right? Okay, so that doesn't typically bode well. If everybody's abandoning ship, maybe this was not as good as some people might hope. So here is Ben Crump today, now talking about what they saw when they were meeting with the county.
What we witnessed here, our legal team, and you're going to hear from our legal team who got to witness the video, and then you're going to hear from the family members, and then we'll take your questions. We want to say on the record from the onset, we do not feel that we got transparency. Okay. We only saw a snippet of the video. When we know that the video started before and after what they showed the family. And they determined what was pertinent. Why couldn't the family see all the video? They only showed 1 body cam video, even though we know there were several body cam videos if they were following the law and the policy in this county that everybody has video cameras on their uniforms.
It looks really bad. It looks terrible. I don't know why they do that, right? And you're going to see here as we go through this, they saw like 20 seconds of the whole thing, and apparently we're going to hear from the family. They're going to explain what they saw. It's one officer who's sort of like somewhat related. All these other officers all scattered around, running all over the place, all also wearing body cameras, but they pick the guy who's like way in the back that you can't see anything. Hey, here's 20 seconds for your family. Come on, guys, what are you doing? It's going to come out sooner rather than later. Why are you hiding the ball on this stuff? Ben Crump is exactly right on this. If you are not going to be open and honest about it, then we can't presume that you're acting in good faith. We can sort of jump to the conclusion that you're being shady as hell, because you are, by not letting them see the full story here. Just a little 20 seconds that we've clipped out and made difficult for you to really understand what happened here. And this is a problem, right? And I've said this for a long time. I think that when law enforcement agencies do this, anytime that our government does this in general, I have a huge problem with it. It's almost worse than what happened, right? You can say, yes, our officers made a mistake. Yes, something bad happened. We screwed up. But when you then try to cover it up, it's like, oh gosh, all right. Now any sort of reasonable person, I think, is well within their rights to say, well, you guys are liars. You're liars and manipulators. And you should be held accountable for that. So today, right, there's no video out there. They could have been in motion. They could have filed this motion in front of the judge immediately. They didn't. They're sort of dragging their feet on it. And now Ben Crump and this narrative is now on CNN, right here on CNN, out there talking in front of everybody about this. So of course, what are everyday citizens supposed to do? What is somebody who's already predisposed to say, you know, the police are kind of garbage. Maybe I'm naturally inclined to not be in favor of them. They see this type of stuff and they go, see, yeah, there you go, right again. They're hiding the ball again. Somebody else is shot and killed. It's been 5 days, 6 days, 7 days, 8 days, and they show 20 seconds to the family. Well, the rest of the public wants to see this. And now when it does come out, the rest of the public is not going to be happy, nor should they be, because their own government was trying to hide this from them, which is insane. So we go back to this story over from Fox. It says schools, as we mentioned, are also going back down into remote learning. As a result of this, they posted this on Facebook. It says, we appreciate your support and understanding during this time. Unclear when the body camera footage is going to be released. We have the Sheriff Tommy Wooten said in a recorded video statement Saturday that he would file a motion in court to ask a local judge as early as Monday to allow its release. He said he would first check with the North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation, which is probing the fatal shooting, to make sure that releasing the video would not hamper their efforts. So I got to go check, right? Oh, I got to go check. Hey, let me go talk to them. Call this guy, call this guy. Then he goes back. Only a judge can release the video. That's why I've asked North Carolina State Bureau of Investigation to confirm for me that releasing of the video will not undermine their investigation. Once I get that confirmation, our county will file a motion in court, hopefully Monday, to have the footage released. So we'll see. Wooten released the statement just after a family attorney, local clergy, and civil rights leaders, including Barber and others, held a news conference to demand that the footage be released. And yeah, they're right. It should be released. I don't know why this takes so long. Okay, they know how this game works, and they are dragging their feet on it. Here's Ben Crump again, and I think this is where we're going to hear some of the family.
They wanted to have just the two family members see the video with no legal counsel, as if they did not have a right to have their legal counsel present when they watch this execution of their loved one.
Exactly what it was.
And we have to keep demanding transparency, because we do not feel what the county attorney offered was transparency at all. And so it's very emotional, not only the video, but how this family was disrespected, even in the aftermath. You talk about insult on top of injury. But be not dismayed. The truth will come out. The video will be seen by the public, and we will get justice for Andrew Brown Jr.
Yeah, I mean, he's right? It's going to come out one way or the other. Now, whether we look at it and we say, yeah, that was a justified shooting, or we look at that and we say, no, that was an execution, as Mr. Ben Crump says, that's up for determination yet. We haven't seen it. So apparently he's calling it an execution, which is a pretty provocative thing for an attorney to say, right? That implies that somebody was executed, which is a big deal. It's a big claim to be making here, especially as it relates to law enforcement. Now, let's finish the story. America, here is the issue, said President Keith Rivers. Somebody from the NAACP says, a warrant is not a license to kill, even if a suspect supposedly drives away. Barber said at a news conference attended by Brown's children, a warrant is not permission to shoot someone. He's right about that. Under North Carolina law, a judge must generally sign off on the release of law enforcement body camera footage, which is an insane, stupid rule. Leaders of the Elizabeth City government have demanded the release of the footage, and a coalition of media filed a petition in court to make it public. Everybody wants it. Democratic Governor Roy Cooper issued a statement calling for the swift release of the footage. And so, of course, right, he's a Democrat, so you know how sort of these things go. Everything is politicized these days. But he certainly sounds like he's concerned about what he saw on it, or what he's hearing is on it. Here's what he posted a couple days ago on Twitter. Said, this is Governor Roy Cooper over from North Carolina. The governor said initial reports of the shooting in Elizabeth City and the death of Andrew Brown Jr. this week are tragic and extremely concerning. Body camera footage should be made public as quickly as possible, and SBI should investigate thoroughly to ensure accountability. So, hard to tell if that's just a governor's statement, right, to come out and say everything's concerning, right? Everything that happens in the world is extremely concerning, and thoughts and prayers and whatever. We're better than this, America, 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 right? That's what politicians do. But is there something really concerning here? Because the police is being mum about. They're being mum about this, right? They don't want this coming out. They showed the family 20 seconds, and as we're going to hear in this next clip, it wasn't even that great of footage. It was sort of footage that was, well, here it is.
How many shots did you hear in that 20 seconds, and could you tell how many officers were firing?
It was at least 7 or 8 officers there, and the number, they were reeling off. You know, we lost count. It was 20 seconds, and we lost count in 20 seconds how many shots.
Attorney Lashley, the video you saw, was the police vehicle marked or unmarked?
Marked.
It was marked?
Yes.
Were they in uniform, or were they not?
Some of them was in SWAT. Some of them had on jeans and khakis with the upper part in uniform.
In the audio portion, did you hear them identify themselves? Did you hear them say to him who they were and you need to stop?
They had cut that part out. We didn't. 20 seconds. We didn't get a lot. All they said was, hold on, let me look at my note, make sure I get it correct.
Take your time.
Second one, guns drawn, pointing at him while his hands are on the steering wheel. Let me see your hands. His hands on the steering wheel. It was at least 5 on the driver's side pointing the guns at him. Let me see your hands. That's where it started at the 1 second mark.
So you did not see the beginning, them driving up. You didn't see that?
No.
The beginning of this video was them standing with guns pointed at him.
Yes.
Shots were already being fired.
Shots already been fired by the time we saw it. And then someone was running from the other side of the street, another officer.
So you not before, but what you saw, as soon as the video starts, you already hear shots.
Yes.
And to my understanding, the body cam that was shown was an officer furthest away, not the officers who were right in front of him.
Right.
So that's the body cam they showed.
So there were 5 cops standing on the driver's side. You did not see the body cam footage from those 5 cops. That was on vantage point.
No, we didn't see that.
So what was the vantage point? Behind the car, side of the car?
On the side of the car, running across the street. So they were running. He was running. The officer that we saw.
From the other side of the truck.
Right.
So it wasn't any of the ones who were shooting,
He was shooting too at some point.
but he's further away.
Yes.
Yeah. In the video.
So they take the cop furthest away, and they cut his body camera out. There's 7, 8 cops, 7 she said, so many different gunshots going off. They can't even keep track of them, and they get a full 20 seconds. So they don't even get to see what happened as they approached. So they're okay. So they're being accountable. They're being what is this? This is insane. So let's go over. We'll finish this story up here. It says Monday marks 6 days since the shooting happened on the 21st, and authorities so far have provided limited information regarding the circumstances under which Brown was killed. Meanwhile, protests are demanding transparency. They persisted in the city, municipality of 18,000 people, 165 miles north of Raleigh. Wooten said deputies from his department, including a tactical team, were attempting to serve a drug-related search and arrest warrant when Brown was shot. He said multiple deputies fired shots, but he disclosed few other details. Nearby, Dare County had issued 2 arrest warrants for Brown on drug-related charges, including possession with intent to sell cocaine. Brown, 42, had a criminal history dating back to the 90s, including past drug convictions. 7 deputies, as I mentioned, have been placed on leave amid indications and including emergency scanner traffic and an eyewitness account that Brown was shot in the back as he tried to drive away in his neighborhood. It's going to be bad. It's good. Could be very bad. Now, you know, the other thing, you have to sort of ask yourself, what's always missing from these stories, right? If somebody gets killed, it's always there. Well, they had a gun, they had a knife, they had some sort of dangerous weapon. Haven't seen anything like that yet, right? Did they open the door after they shot him and, you know, find guns and drugs and everything? Like, typically, if they do, that's one of the first things you hear. Officers were responding to a threat. He opened fire, they fired back, end of story, right? Just like what we saw with Ma'Khia Bryant. He shot her, but we got the video. That was a knife, right? She was attacking another female with that. So pretty kind of open and shut case. Even a lot of people on CNN, I think Don Lemon and some others, were also going, yeah, well, kind of had to happen that way because of what we saw. This one, haven't seen anything quite like that yet, right? They haven't shown us that 20 seconds of this guy waving a gun or this guy waving a knife, and if he was driving away and officers loaded into the back of his car, it's not good. All right, let's take some questions over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If you want to support the show, that's the place to do it. First question comes over from Chris John in the house. Says, why isn't there an obligation for the police to promulgate the body cam footage forthwith? Good question there, Chris. It's a departmental issue, right? This is something that individual departments, cities, municipalities, states, counties, they all figure this stuff out on their own and they deal with it. And a lot of people are saying this is a pretty big problem, that there should be some sort of a national standard or, local state standards where where they have certain policies that the people demand are put in place. In a situation like this, you can have a rapid response team. And the city of Phoenix, the Phoenix Police Department, to their credit, have done a very nice job with this. We've had a couple officer-involved shootings here. They get the whole thing scripted, edited. They bring in somebody of, a certain, demographic to come in and sort of voice over for that. They match it all up beautifully. It's nice. They do it quickly, and they do it with precision, which I think is a better model. I think it's what other law enforcement agencies should be doing, because you can see what happens here. If they don't tell us what happened, people are going to fill in the blanks themselves. And when they're being shady and not telling us what's going on, and they're sort of, we got to go file a motion, and we got to go talk to the county, and they're investigating. And then when you do get to see it, you bring the whole family in. You say, well, we're only going to take 2 of you, and you don't even get to bring your lawyer. And when you get into the room, now we're only going to show you 20 seconds. Give me a break, guys. You got to open up the books. You got to show us this stuff. Otherwise, it's going to be even worse if you don't. And that's not a threat from me. I'm saying that's a threat from society. Society wants to see this stuff. We're seeing what happens if they don't. Next up, we've got National Populist says, like 20 seconds. Are we sure it is 20 seconds? Have we seen the tape? Is Crump capitalizing? Well, he certainly is capitalizing. I don't think that there's any question about that. He is doing a good job, right? And as I mentioned, if the government's not going to give us the information first, then he has a clean slate. He has a tabula rasa. He can just go and create whatever narrative he wants, whether it's accurate or not. Who's going to rebut that? Because they haven't released any information. So currently, the only story we have is his. We have Todd Trout in the house. Says, on the other hand, Ben Crump only wanted to ignore all the other video from the Chauvin trial. Did he? So I think he was mostly interested in the bystander video because, of course, that was the most damaging. We have Hack Consulting in the house. Says, I hope police departments start getting more restrictive on what they release. Well, really, Hack? See, that's the opposite of what I think. Why should the family have access to the full video? They lost their loved ones already. Why do they want to see the movie of how it happened? Why is this seen as a cover-up? Why is this seen as lying and manipulating? Why? What about the people in the area that happen to be on the video? They show their face in the area of privacy and confidentiality, but why trust the police? Well, I think it's that we don't trust the police, which is why we demand eyeballs on what they're claiming happened. Right there, we don't trust the police. I don't trust them at all. So they are saying something happened a certain way. All of us are saying, no, it didn't. We don't believe you. So you have to open up your books and show us, because you're a public extension. Okay, you're not a private citizen. You are working for us, the public. You're working for the citizens in your locality, and so we want to know what you're doing. You are our employees, essentially. Now, they don't like it when you frame it that way, but it's true. They're performing a public service. We as a society have gathered together and said, well, we're all going to pay a certain amount of taxes to fund these goods that can be evenly, more or less, distributed across society. And law enforcement is one of those things. So if they are going to be performing a duty and people are going to be getting killed in the performance of those obligations, and we have problems with them killing people, then we want to be able to go and investigate when necessary. And so it's sort of a tradition of public access and public records and transparency and accountability that you want the government to be able to be opened up so you can see what they're doing. We have Jeremy Matrita says, unfortunately, a lot of veteran law enforcement is quitting across the country. They take with them all the wisdom and experience that won't be passed down, making the overall state of law enforcement on a downward spiral. I think you're absolutely right, Jeremy, and I actually saw a headline on this. I don't think it's in our slides today, but we did talk about, or I did read about, I think Philadelphia had something like 100 or so recruits just kind of bail, right? And their numbers are down dramatically, and that's going to be a problem. And I don't think that is going to be addressed easily because the momentum seems to be going the other direction. The momentum seems to be in favor of the defund the police, not in favor of the increase funds for the police. We have Ma Fox in the house says, can we just legalize drugs already? I'm tired of no-knock warrants and drug raids and 30% of the prison population being in there for ridiculous sentences. Some for life, for goodness sake. Here on that one, Ma. Well done. Yeah, I agree with you completely. I think that drugs, the drug war is so dumb. We've seen time and time again how many people get killed because they're rounded up in drug crimes, and this guy, right? They were serving a drug warrant. Cocaine. Okay, good. Well, he's dead. And now, the rest of the city is going to be on high alert and you're going to have to pay for it. I hope that cocaine was worth it for you. I hope that big interdiction was really worth it because now you're going to, the whole city is going to have to pay the consequences there. A lot of people in prison, a lot of people in jail for drug crimes, and they are addicts. They are addicted to things. They're not bad people. They're not broken people. They're addicts. They've got problems just like the rest of us do. We were all addicted to something. Okay, you can say that you're without flaw. May not be alcohol or drugs or cocaine or methamphetamines, but might be those donuts, might be that coffee you get every morning, might be that, that website you go to on the internet or whatever. Okay, we all got our little quirks and flaws. Some of them just happen to be way more illegal than the others. And the drug, people who are addicted to drugs, they're in pain and their life is in trauma because of their upbringing or their environment or whatever. And they just need some support and a little bit of help. And so when we just say we're going to, execute warrants and then murder them because they're driving away with some cocaine, that is not a good thing. That is not how I think society should operate because it's just drugs. Right? It's just drugs. Not worth shooting and killing a man over that. And so, you can make the argument that he sell those drugs, might kill somebody else. I doubt all of that. But the point is, we have a system of laws. We have a system of due process. We have the presumption of innocence. We do not want to empower anybody in this country with the legal authority to go and just start executing people, especially in the mission of wiping off drugs from our streets. It's ridiculous. Liberty or Death says, I think what would be a great thing is if these individual police departments set up a server or archive where body cams are uploaded daily and the public could watch it. So this is something I've mentioned here before, Liberty, sort of a public database and even a national database, right? Somewhere where theoretically there's a website called evidence.com, which is, I think it's the back-end interface for Axon. And so if you go there, they are already uploading these, right? A lot of these are contracted companies, private companies that contract with local law enforcement agencies. And so they're national companies and they've got a national infrastructure and a national backend. So if you go to Axon or if you go to evidence.com, I think you can actually, if you have the right number and access information, you can download all of the body cameras. So there's an infrastructure in place for that, but there's just no privacy policies, and police departments, they don't want that. They don't want you going through their stuff. Most of these things are never seen, and they would prefer it that way. If you made it all publicly available, you'd have guys like me just poking around on these websites and seeing if I could find anything worth talking about on YouTube. We have Hack Consulting says, Ben Crump is the reason why the family does not have legal counsel with him. The police are showing the family the footage out of dignity and respect, their way of apologizing if need be, as well as saying their sorrow. Then you have a political ideologue like Crump trying to make it a battle. Well, that's interesting, Hack Consulting. I think that might be nice if the police want to do that, but it's kind of not up to them to decide how that works, right? The family, I think, is fully entitled to the information, regardless of how they want to wrap it up. We have Osak. Rob, big fan. So do you think the hold on the video could be they may have riots over it? Yes, I do. I think that is the reason. Is that a good reason not to release a video? So I don't think so, but they do, right? They think that, they need permission. They got to make sure everything's all okay, issue the emergency orders and all this stuff because they probably know it's bad, which is why they are delaying it. Jeremy Matrita in the house says law enforcement agencies could probably raise a lot of money if they offered a paid subscription for live streaming police body cameras. Cops live live and uncut. That's from Jeremy. Yeah, they're the biggest shows, right? True crime is very popular. Some of the biggest podcasts, best novels, or biggest novels. I don't know about best, but the biggest ones are out there. They're all true crimes. Netflix here and Amazon this. It's popular. We have Ma Fox says, sounds like they thought he'd be a danger if he drove off, or we're thinking he'd run someone over. That's my guess anyways. We'll see. Yeah, we will. We'll see. And that's kind of a similar argument to what we were talking about with Kim Potter. Remember that? And when I sort of did the defending Kim Potter, yeah, there's an argument. I think that the police could make that argument that somebody who is resisting arrest is a fleeing felon and they're a danger to society. And so you're justified to shoot them, right? And I think that's not an argument that I endorse or even appreciate, but it is an argument. And that would be one of them that they could proffer forward in a situation like this. Leafy Bug in the house says, it boggles my mind that after all that's gone down over the past few years, and particularly last year, the police would allow the perception of what happened to be portrayed in this way. Maximum transparency is required. Totally agree with you on that, Leafy Bug. It's like, hey, if you want to nip this stuff in the bud, you got to be forthcoming about it. You got to show it to us so we can see it. Otherwise, the narrative is going to be whatever the opposition side says it is. And so, this is sort of like a lesson in politics, right? When I was in college, when I was studying political science, and there was a professor who I actually couldn't stand at all, and I'm not sure whatever happened to the guy, but he was a political person, and he was running for office and all this stuff. Ran a very obnoxious class, of course, like the rest of college, was on one particular side of the aisle, and he taught a very lesson. We were reading through something or other, and he was talking, I think it might have been about Obama. Yeah, because that would have been in 2008, right? That was his first campaign. And he said something in one of Obama's books. He came out, and in the book, he released a lot of sort of, at that time, damning information about himself. He smoked marijuana, he smoked cigarettes, he had some flings with some women, whatever. He sort of did a deep dive on his college days and sort of put that out in the public first, before he even started running for anything serious, right? One of his first books was sort of airing out all of his garbage in his closet. Here it is, America. Here, take a look at it. I wrote about it in my book twice. I wrote 2 books about all of it in there. And so he's being proactive. You do this in trial. It's sort of like you throw out the bad facts first. We talked about this in the Chauvin case. Show them your cards, because that's how you diffuse the situation. Yes, we're sorry. Here's what's going on. But when you try to hide it and people find out after the fact, that makes it way worse. When, the police now release this stuff, or if a bad fact comes out in trial, or if you're in a situation in, running for politics and your opponent finds the information out and they release it, they get to craft the narrative. They get to tell the story in their version, and you lose the opportunity to go out and be defining. So that's what's happening here. They have just totally dropped the ball on it. We've got Viva in the house. Viva Fries in the house. He says it's public force. It's public police force. It's a public police force. These body cam footage, should be public domain. They should be released immediately. No delay, no editing. Hear on that, Viva. There can obviously be exceptions for which body cam footage should be withheld or blurred or censored, but with incidents like this, no excuse. Couldn't agree more. Release edited or censored footage, but released footage. Yeah, I totally agree with Viva. And I agree, right? There are some very sensitive things that can come out in these videos. Identities, you can have, gruesome, gore and stuff like that on a person's body. You certainly don't want to show that, right? You don't want to be provocative for the sake of being provocative. You want to show more about what happened so that we can see it, because if you hide it, then it feels like something really bad happened and you're a liar and you're dishonest because you're not telling us about it. And so that just compounds the anger and the animosity, as it should, other than us just seeing it so that we can dissect it and then begin to heal if that needs to happen. And people, look, I say this all the time, justice delayed is justice denied. We need it. The longer that they push this stuff out, it's problematic, and people are seeing it. There are evidentiary problems with it. There are all sorts of other issues. We saw this with the Ahmaud Arbery case when they waited, 3 months to try to sweep this stuff under the rug. That's not acceptable anymore. When this stuff happens, police departments need to have a rapid response team. They need to take responsibility for the public relations side of this stuff. Otherwise, we're going to see what happens. Ben Crump and other people in that camp are going to seize the narrative and make it their own. What's up, Viva? We got Viva. Hey, if you missed our interview, Viva and Barnes were on the show on Friday. Very awesome conversation. Had a great time with those gentlemen, and they have been rocking and rolling all over the place. They had a live stream yesterday, which I caught the better part of. Good show. So go check them out. Viva is on YouTube. They're also on Locals at vivabarneslaw.locals.com, which is right next door to watchingthewatchers.locals.com. we're like neighbors on the same street. Hey, Viva. Hey, Rob. All right. So Viva's in the house. We've got Ryan last up on this segment. Says, how do we defend the intent and ideals of the police departments as institutions while holding individual police officers accountable for an action? Seems we are in a catch-22 situation where we can only achieve one of these. Accountable for their actions. Yes. So, it's a good question. I think that it is with transparency. I think that is the first step. We have to see what's going on inside these law enforcement departments before we can really start crafting some solutions. And I proposed a lot of them. I proposed, sort of a elimination of some of the disincentives for being law-abiding. So, for example, qualified immunity, I have a big problem with. I got a big problem with police unions. There are these sort of back-end deals that are created a lot of the time where police records will be expunged or eliminated out of their personnel files as a part of the city contract with the police unions. So they just sort of purge their records from time to time. All of that stuff has to go. How can you have an institution that has good intentions and good ideals if they're covering for the malcontents, for the people who are the opposite of those ideals? You can't. So you have to open this up. You have to give some transparency, got to be aggressive with the bad cops. The people who are keeping the bad cops around are the unions. So something needs to be done about them as well. So great questions. All of those came over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. If you want to support the show, that's really the place to do that. You can download a copy of my book. You can download a coupon code for the Existence Systems course, which is available now at robertgruller.com. A little bit of a payment portal issue. It's being fixed right now, but just bookmark that and you can get it later in the week. So a lot of great stuff is happening over on Locals. Great people. And we really appreciate the support. So check that out at watchingthewatchers.locals.com.